Well, hey, everybody. Happy Super Bowl Saturday. Woo, woo.
Good morning, everybody. Dr. Pitts, how are you this morning?
I'm tired, Ronnie.
I feel you.
I'm tired. It's been a long week. It's been, you know what I feel like? I feel like I feel like 2022 came in like a raging bull in a china shop.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how when you see in the bullfights and stuff, the bull's there and he's like doing that hoof like
Mm-hmm.
that and getting ready to ram something again. That's what I feel like. That's what it feels like being how many days in? We're 43 days in to
Mm-hmm.
2022. And I'm like, okay, what in the world is going
I
on?
I feel like that's how we can describe this decade so far.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
since this whole decade so far since it started has
yeah.
felt like somebody's ran in the China shop and just wanted all the smoke, like all of it. But
Freaking all
it,
types of
it's
ass.
it's crazy. Now, I don't know what the weather's like down there today, but I can tell you right now that it is going to be 70 degrees today here in Virginia. But then tomorrow it's going to be a high of 35.
See, okay, we're the opposite. It was 82 yesterday, and the high for
82.
today is 56 with a low of 30 something. It's
82.
it's you know what, you know how people use when the weather's all crazy, people used to say, "Oh, this is pneumonia weather." I'm not saying that anymore. This is just global warming weather. Period. If you catch the cold, the flu, bronchitis, the hiccups, I don't know. I just like I literally I said to
But you
one
know
of
it's
my
crazy. I had to learn this because for the longest time I always believe you always hear, oh, if you go outside in the cold weather, that's how you get sick and stuff. And I really had to learn, and it really makes sense. Like it's not necessarily the cold weather that makes people sick. It's the
right,
fact that everybody's grouped indoors during the wintertime that makes
right.
everybody more susceptible to sickness
Germ bubbles all over the place.
everywhere,
Yeah.
every single where. And unfortunately, with COVID going around and stuff like that, you know, something else added to the list of things we have to worry about during the wintertime outside of
Right.
flu, pneumonia, and everything else in between. But but yeah, no, the weather, um, I don't think I think eventually we're gonna run out of seasons, and it's just gonna be like it'll be
One
chilly in
big
the
same
morning,
season.
be chilly in the morning, warm during the day. You might get a sprinkle by the afternoon, and then sunny in the
Right.
evening, cold
Just
again at
have all
night.
the seasons in one day. It's all
Might
good.
might as well. Might as well at this point. But look, you all, welcome back to another episode of House Talk Pregame this morning. We
Yeah.
have a wonderful, wonderful episode lined up for you all today, continuing with the theme of, Lovers Month, Black History Month, and all that. We have some great information and some great, recognition things to talk about this morning as well. But our topic for today is called The Inner Game, Mending a Broken Heart.
Mm-hmm.
And well, Ronnie, why are we talking about mending broken hearts in the form of sports? Well, look, we all, as much as we think of mending a broken heart, that deals with, getting your heart broken in relationships and things like that. And we're
Mm-hmm.
definitely going to talk about that. But heartbreak also falls in the form of sports. And
Yeah.
we're actually going to talk about some of the most iconic heartbreaking moments in sports history. There's been a
Yes.
lot of them. And, as the athlete, not only the athlete, but the coaches, the family, the support system all involved.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help an athlete dealing with heartbreak? How do you help that athlete get through that and process that and get them prepared to
Yep.
move on and get ready for whether it's the next game, next season, next event in life, or next relationship, all these things we're going to be talking about today. I think this is a great topic, as well as, like Dr. Pitt said, it's Super Bowl weekend. We got an exciting game ready
That game's gonna
tomorrow.
be the truth.
We're definitely going to talk about who we think is going to win the Super Bowl and why we think so. And I don't know if any HBCU athletes are in the Super. I need to look that up. Matter of fact, I'm
Can do that real quick.
yeah.
Well, you do that, and while you do that, I'm gonna touch on the fact that I was reading about the men's basketball coach at Howard, a gentleman by the name of Kenneth Blakeney, and how he's taken the approach that Coach Deion Sanders is taking, but within the context of basketball, and really wanting to have some more spotlight shown on HBCU basketball athletes to help them to get more looks. And what I really appreciated about everything that I read about him is that him growing up in DC and just coming from a violent background. He's 50 years of age, and he talked about how, when he was growing up, it was when crack cocaine was hitting DC the hardest, and just how many friends he lost to drugs and overall violence throughout the city. And just, he reflected upon when he was playing basketball. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he said he played for Duke. I think it was Duke that he played for, and talking about how he recalls, fans spitting in his direction on the court and calling him the N-word and just horrible, horrible things. And he said something, Ronnie, that I thought was so powerful. He said, we need to change the culture. In order to address racism, in order to address, this disparity that we see in how HBCU athletes are viewed compared to students that go to PWIs, there has to be this paradigm shift within the context of culture in sports. And that just resonated with me. It resonated with me on such a deep level, because I'm like, you know what? That's it. It reminded me of when I used to work at FAMU. And I remember when I was down there and touring the campus and meeting with administrators and what have you. And one of the administrators that I met with said something that at that time, all those years ago, I hadn't heard before. She said, working and being educated at an HBCU is a completely different culture than working in corporate America. And I, in my naivete, I honestly hadn't thought about it from that perspective, going to work at an HBCU. And I was like, you know what? That's it. It's a cultural shift that needs to happen. And then just to extend that a little bit, and hats off to Mr. Blakeney for the work that he's trying to do with Howard's basketball program, and wishing him the utmost success in his efforts to do for basketball what Coach Prime is doing for football. I just love that story. But then it also reminded me of, I was having a conversation with someone in Canada earlier in the week, and I didn't know that the Don has greatly impacted racial tensions in Canada as well, so much so they're protesting in the streets, and racism and racial tension is at an all-time high in our Canadian citizens as well. And I'm just blown. But you know what was interesting, Ronnie? The way that it was explained to me is that the racial tension, they're not seeing it so much against African Americans, they're seeing it against Native Americans because of the reservations and what have. It's a mess. It is absolutely positively a mess. And here we are, over a year into our new administration, and the upheaval that was caused by the previous administration is still alive and well and wreaking havoc around the world. And that is just tragic to me. That is just so tragic on so many different levels. And I just, the nuts are alive and well.
Speaking of the political side of that real quick, since we're on that topic, I just want to do a quick plug in real quick, because I've been following this brother for a couple of years now. And for those who know this name, Gary Chambers Jr. If you've never heard of him, I really encourage you to go check him out. So Gary Chambers is a resident of Louisiana who is actually running for state senate in Louisiana against is it John Kennedy? I think that's it. I think it's John, not of course not John F. Kennedy, but I think his name is John Kennedy though. But he's been one of the state senators in Louisiana for like forever. But Gary Chambers is a everyday African American citizen who really and I think he's from Baton Rouge. He started off, if you've seen the video from a couple years ago, he was the gentleman at the school board meeting who called out the white lady who was a part of the school board who was online shopping when one of the parents was expressing concerns about, the school districts and
I
stuff.
remember hearing about that.
Specifically, the school of Robert E. Lee trying to get the name changed, and she was online shopping. Well, he's actually running for state senate now in Louisiana.
Okay.
And I think, to your point, I think somebody like that, when we talk about the administration and things like that, not getting behind Black rights and stuff like that, and really having showing the equality for people of color, somebody like him are people we need in political offices. Because I always tell people, as much as they make pressure on the general elections and the big federal elections and stuff like that, your local elections will be the most important elections in your life, because those people are the ones who really influence your day-to-day life.
That's right.
I get it. The president, U.S. senators, U.S. representatives, all that, they impact us on a macro level. But on a micro level, every day, day-to-day basis, your local laws and all that.
Your mayors, your police chief, your city councilman, your assemblyman.
Yeah, and if there really doesn't, and if you really need motivation to really take your local election serious, think of all the recent crimes and tragedies we've seen across the nation, and we've seen people get unfairly ruled against, and charges dropped against these people by local judges, lawyers, and stuff like that, who have had positions of power for 20, 30 years, and they've never been checked. They've never had somebody run against them who would actually hold them accountable. Right. So I think as a people, especially as Black people, look, yes, the whole get out and vote and stuff and all that is super important, but not necessarily just voting for the president of the United States, because let's be real, he's a figurehead. He does what he does. He represents us on a global level, but he is not interested in Ronnie Ransome or Dr. Lauren Pitts' everyday concerns on an everyday basis. Partly because it would just be impossible for him to be concerned with 350 million individuals' lives every single day. That's why we have these local elections. That's why we have local politicians and things like that, to hold them accountable. Because when your tax dollars come out every single day, your hard-earned money, your taxes come out, and our taxes are supposed to go to the government, and we entrust them to make good decisions. But how many times can we sit around and stand by the side and let them continue to make decisions with our money, and we don't hold them accountable for it, and then we continue to point the finger saying, well, things aren't getting done. If you still got them potholes in your neighborhood, if your school still got books that your grandparents were using, well, guess what? They're still taking your money every single day, but we're not holding them accountable to make these changes. So I think, I'm sorry to go on that tangent or whatever, but I think
it's need to know information.
Absolutely. I think it's really important. So y'all definitely check him out if you're in Louisiana. Look, we can definitely support his cause. He has, I think it's changeforlouisiana.org. You can go on there and donate to his campaign. Look, y'all, this brother, we need people like him in office and things like that can actually make the grassroots changes that we always talk about. Like you said, this person's been a state senator for almost 30 years, and Louisiana is last in crime, last in education, and next to last in economics. But he's been in power for that state for that long. So clearly, he doesn't have a vested interest in those people. And how many times do we see these other politicians in our states that have been in office for 30, 40, 50 years, and your state is still in the same position it was when they got there? So just keep that in mind, people. Just keep that in mind.
Indeed. Good point.
I know we got a little off track on that one. Dr. Pitts, did you have was that serve as your mental health tip of the week this week, or did you have one?
I have one.
Okay.
To your point and what you talked about, with people questioning why are we talking about heartbreak in relationships within the context of sports, because as we've illuminated on several shows throughout, our time as House Talk and House Talk Pregame, the love relationship that athletes have with their sports is a relationship. It is absolutely positively a relationship. And when that relationship comes to an end, it can be devastating. It can be debilitating, right? But I want to make sure that our audience is aware that there are so many different types of heartbreak that one can experience within relationships. Your relationship with sports, your relationship with a loved one, your relationship with your partner, your relationship with a job that you've been on for 30 years, and then they downsize and move you out and replace you with, a millennial or a Gen Z. the list goes on and on with the types of relationships that you can have. But I think that it's so important that people understand, Ronnie, that with some heartbreak, you experience pain that is comparable to that of the death of a loved one. A relationship breakup doesn't have to, as we know, end in death. But for so many people, dependent upon how invested they were in that relationship, and we know you athletes are like head over heels in love with your sports, right? So when that relationship comes to an end, whether it be retirement or getting let go, or a career-ending injury, it can be absolutely positively devastating, and it can catapult the person into a cycle of grief that, if not managed properly, can end up very, very poorly, which in part, I believe, is why the suicide rate amongst athletes is so high, because people struggle to properly manage the grief that is associated with the relationship breakup. So I wanted to highlight that, and I want people to consider looking at the conclusion of these relationships similarly to how they would look at the death of a loved one, and recognize that that relationship coming to an end could very well put them within the stages of grief where they're in denial. They can't believe that it's happening. The injuries, right? The career-ending injuries, anger, rage. Why is this happening to me? I was at the peak, Ronnie, I was at the peak of my athletic career. Why is this happening to me now? How could they let me go? How, what were they thinking? Bargaining. I'll do anything. Just, what, let me shine. Let me go play for this other team. Let me show them that I am absolutely positively worthy of them bringing me back. And I will show them that, that I deserve to play for this team, that that it's me. I'm going to be the one that's going to get them to the championship. Or in the context of an intimate relationship, how could she pick him over me? How could he pick her over me? How could he pick him over me? How could she pick her over me? Don't they know who I am? I'll do anything. Just give me another chance. I promise I'll fix it. I'll make it better. And then it's the depression, Ronnie. It's, how can I go on after this? This relationship was my everything. My whole world is validated by this game, by this person, by this love. I don't know if I can go on without it. And then it's acceptance. You know what? Forget all y'all. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. Because the best way to get over all of this is to move forward and to win, 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 and win big. Win big with the new sport, win big in broadcasting, because I think about my Tony Romo. You think for a minute he jokes about fumbling the snaps in the playoffs and all that stuff. You know why? Because that paycheck that he has, that he goes to the bank and cashes, or that shows up in his direct deposit for commentating.
Maybe he'll get a ring as a commentator.
Look, hey, you know what? I know he ain't. Look, his body is not aching like he's not getting broken ribs and special padding for commentating,
or getting his back fused and
You're
stuff
right.
like that.
He gets to get the Romo report and chill.
Tony
It's
Romo.
okay. I want people to look at whatever type of breakup they're experiencing. I need them to know that more than likely, they're going to end up processing through the stages of grief. And don't think for a moment that just because what you're experiencing didn't involve death, that you're not catapulted into the stages of grief. And because of that, you more than likely could benefit from some sort of clinical support to help you to process through and to decide what's next for you after the breakup. That's all I have, Ronnie.
I think that was very beautiful, and I think we're definitely going to get into more of dealing with the stages of grief, as well as like what does that look like as far as getting over it as an athlete, as a coach, as a in a relationship, and all that things. And you beautifully kind of highlighted that already. And we're definitely going to dive more into that. So thank you for that. So like we always say, we always like to show love and give people their flowers while they're still here. And also a lot of the times we don't really have a lot of access to the information about how great and how grand HBCUs and Black history really spans. You always hear people talking about this is Black History Month and stuff like that, but without Black history there is no history. And I think for it to be condensed down into the shortest month of the year, I think that's always a disservice. And for me, one of the things I've always liked to do, and even as a biracial kid, of course, I'm very cognizant of, I definitely have two different cultures that are through my bloodlines. I have African-American culture, and of course I have, Caucasian culture and all that type of stuff. But, I think, naturally, because I've always been naturally inclined to be associated with my African-American culture and stuff like that, I definitely had a warped view coming through public school, coming through a predominantly white school and the school district and things like that. So it wasn't until I went to a HBCU, where I went to Virginia State University, and I actually learned about our African-American history and things like that. Which brings me to, when we speak about African-American history, one of the areas where our history is really overlooked and we really don't get a lot of love is in the field of mental health. And I think, within the last couple of years, mental health has become a huge thing in the Black and brown community. Because for so long before that, it was always seen as a negative. It was always seen as, if you go to a therapist or a psychiatrist or psychologist, you're broken, you're crazy, you're dumb, you can't figure it out, you're weak, you're inferior, you're incapable of being normal. All these stigmas and things that have been attached to Black people and people of color going to therapy. But that's no shock when you really study the history of psychology and counseling and things like that, where not only was this racism rooted in economics and society and stuff like that, it was also rooted in mental health. And one of the things that I've learned, being in the mental health field, is that, a lot of the theories, and Dr. Pitts, I know you can agree with this as well, a lot of the theories that we learn while we're in school, from Freud and Rogerian, Adlerian, Beck, and all these other, don't get me wrong, great people of their time, and their insight and their knowledge and stuff like that has become very helpful and resourceful and whatnot. But I would be lying to you if I didn't say that also a lot of their studies and a lot of the things they did also put Black people and people of color in a negative light. People don't often realize that early in psychology, Black people were looked at as inferior. They were looked at that to have the IQ of apes, that, they couldn't be considered humans because they didn't respond to pain the way white people did. If anything, they said, well, Black people don't feel pain the way white people do. They said Black people can't have emotions the way white people do. All these stigmas that were passed down generation after generation after generation. But I want to highlight some people who have changed that stigma, not only for African Americans, but African Americans in mental health.
Yes.
The first one I want to shout out is who is considered the father of Black psychology, Joseph L. White. He wrote the groundbreaking article Toward a Black Psychology, which is credited as being the first ever strengths-based rather than deficit-based evaluation and description of Black behavior and culture. He passionately advocated for the creation of Black psychology and argued that applying white psychology to Black people often unfairly created the illusion of Black inferiority. He also helped found the Association of Black Psychologists, as well as the Black Studies program at San Francisco State University in 1968. If it wasn't for some of his groundbreaking work and getting to recognize that, when people look at us and they judge us off how they view through their lens and not necessarily how we view ourselves through our lens. Another great person, great two people, is Mamie Phipps Clark and her husband, Kenneth Bancroft Clark. So Mamie Phipps Clark was the first African-American woman to earn a doctorate degree in psychology from Columbia University. Her husband was the first ever Black president of the American Psychological Association. The Clarks are best known for their famous doll study in which more than 200 Black children participated. Both Mamie and Kenneth Clark worked on this study, providing invaluable evidence in favor of ending school segregation in the Supreme Court case Brown versus the Board of Education, citing that school segregation was psychologically harmful to Black children. And last but not least, where are we at? Because I definitely wanted to talk about it. And I think this was one of the ones that really stuck out to me. Oh, where are we at? Last but not least is Robert Lee Williams II. So Robert Lee Williams was the creator of the Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity. This was an intelligence test specifically oriented towards Black experiences, language, and culture. The data collected from this test helped to shatter the notion that Black people had lower average intelligence than white people, and showed rather that the differences in previous IQ data were likely the result of speech and experiential differences, skewing IQ test results in favor of white people. If it wasn't for some of these phenomenal African-American pioneers, I don't think me and Dr. Pitts would be sitting in the chairs we're sitting in right now, and also being able to have the conversations we're having today, or even just with our regular clients on a day-to-day basis. But because of these pioneers, because of these people who did not go with the stigma, who did not go with the stereotypes and the assumptions made about African Americans and people of color, they made groundbreaking and pioneering work that has changed the way we not only look at Black people, but our children, our culture, our traumas, our history, and all that. So I wanted to bring this highlight to people to let them know, like, look, you know, our mental health is as important as any other culture, race, gender out there in the world. And if we don't take care of each other, if we don't look out for our people, then we will continue to have these same stigmas, assumptions, and setbacks that we've been having for generation after generation after generation. Mm-hmm. It is not easy being a generational curse breaker, but it's also, I always tell people, if you know better, then in theory, you must do better.
That's right.
So if you know better about yourself, then in theory, you must do better with yourself. And part of that is knowing your history and knowing how far we have come, not only in mental health, not only in HBCUs, but just African Americans in general, because we have come a long ways. And once again, if there is no Black history, there is no history at all. And that's not just here in America, that is the world. Right. So I just wanted to shout out those phenomenal pioneers in the Black mental health field. Dr. Pitts, any thoughts on that?
Wow. Yeah, I do. I remember, and I think I shared this on a previous show. One of the reasons why my great aunt, who has since passed, she passed my second year of grad school, why she was so adamant about me obtaining my master's degree at Drexel University in Philadelphia through the Couple Marriage and Family Therapy program, is because the majority of the faculty running that program were people of color. And she was adamant about it. Certainly not to suggest, because we had other, ethnic groups that were there, and the entire program was extraordinary. But the blessing for it, the blessing in it, Ronnie, was that, to your point, because I was being taught by people of color who were trailblazers in their own right, a lot of what I learned was able to be presented through the eyes of a person of color. So yes, we had the textbooks, and so much of our textbooks, highlighted the work done by Caucasian pioneers in family therapy and family systems theory, but they were able to add the cultural nuances that were necessary for me to understand what this work was going to be like as a woman of color in a field that is dominated by Caucasians. So it was a phenomenal experience. And I've often said, I went in emotionally obese, came out emotionally anorexic. And I remember because one of the professor that was my dean at the time, she's actually now still one of my mentors all these years later. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to Dr. Stephanie Brooks, and I said to her one day, I literally felt like when I went through the panel interviews in preparation for whether or not I'd be accepted, I felt like they kicked my back in. I'm like, no, for real. I feel like they kicked my back in because the majority of our cohort well, we had one young lady who was Native American. The majority of the cohort were individuals that were Caucasian. So there were only, there may have been 5 or 6 of us that were African American. And I was like, I said, Dr. Brooks, I really felt like in the panel interview, like I felt beat up. I felt beat up and drugged through the mud and like slapped around and thrown upside the wall, and they watched me slide down. And she said, with this beautiful smile on her face that she has, we wanted to see how bad you wanted it. Because the work that you are going to do in this field is going to make a difference because you're a woman of color. Not to suggest that the work that my colleagues are doing doesn't, but to your point, because there's such a stigma associated with mental health and mental wellness in our communities, the work that I'm going to do and the work that I'm doing and have been doing hits a little different because I am a woman of color. So yeah, so
you know what I appreciate about our culture the most,
what
is that through all the trauma, the tragedies, the setbacks, the challenges, and everything that has been thrown towards people of color in this country, specifically Black people, for the last 411, 12 years now, is that at the end of the day, to your point, the stigmas that are associated with mental health and, African Americans, I think part of that is the stigma of always that, at the end of the day, at our core, we want to know that we can trust.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest thing for us. Like, we want to know that the information you give, it doesn't necessarily matter who's delivering the information, but when you deliver that information to us, we need to know that we genuinely trust you. Because I think one of the things that is so special about our people is when we genuinely accept something,
yes,
we go all in on it.
Yeah.
I think that's some of the beautiful things about our culture, is that when we actually invest in something as a culture, we go into it, and the creativity and the magic that comes out of that is special. I always like to highlight to people, there's only out of the entire workforce of mental health clinicians and all that, only 5.3% of them are African Americans. And so our work here, our representation has a long ways to go. But to your point, I think one of the things that I know you do beautifully is keeping it real. And at the end of the day, I think one of the things for us as the people is like, we're so instinctively and naturally guarded for great reason. But once we let that guard down and we see that you are being unconditional in your love and compassion, especially in terms of mental health, because mental health is a very vulnerable thing for us.
Right.
It's been a vulnerable thing for us, and we've held on to that for so long, because it's like we've given our trust away, we've let our guard down, and we see what happens when we do that. So to let somebody's guard down and let somebody know your inner workings, your inner thoughts, your vulnerable thoughts, and to know that they're not going to take that in vain, I think that's a very powerful thing that we have to continue to highlight and make sure that we do amongst our people, especially as clinicians. And so to all my clinicians who are listening, understand that if you're a clinician of color, there is a bigger responsibility on your back, not because you asked for it or whatever, it's just because that's what the job asks for. Because for so long, we haven't had that representation in a consistent and a compassionate way. So for all the new clinicians now and going forward, understand that the responsibility that we carry and the role that we carry as clinicians helping our people is very important, because we have to let people know, if you're going to like our culture, you need to like the people that create it.
How about that? Ronnie, can I piggyback on that? Wait, finish your thought, but I want to.
Oh, no, I was done with that. I was done with that thought. Go ahead.
What you said is so incredibly powerful, and when I'm doing the joining phase of our work, the first couple of sessions in particular, and I'm exploring the power of my clients' past, one of the things that I say to them is that off the bat, right? I'm not asking you to trust me. I understand that I need to earn your trust, right? I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust the therapeutic process. But I also encourage my clients to understand that when they do trust me, it makes the work easier, right? It makes this work easier, because when we get to those places of discomfort in the therapeutic relationship, because it is a relationship. When we get to that place and space in the therapeutic relationship where it can get a little uncomfortable, where I begin to stretch them a little bit, where I really encourage them to get in touch with their authentic self and stop giving me the superficial language and the clinical speak that they learned from other clinicians. I want you to be authentic. It makes it so much easier for people to push through that initial discomfort in the therapeutic relationship when there's trust. And what I say in addition to that is this, and you said it, but you didn't say it directly, but I know what you meant. When I am able to create a safe space for my clients to feel okay being vulnerable with me, that is when the real work begins. Because if you don't trust me, if you don't trust the process, if you don't know beyond the shadow of a doubt that I am safe with Dr. Pitts, you're not going to be as effective and get what you came into therapy to get. I need to create a safe space that is free of judgment, that is free of criticism, that makes it easier for people to know that I am wholeheartedly committed to their wellness. And here's the thing. Thank you for highlighting that I keep it real, because that is one of the major tenets of my practice. I will tell you that I don't push the limits when it comes to ethics, but I am unorthodox in my approach. I, as a woman of color, I learned a tremendous amount from the textbooks and great pioneers in family systems theory and all of those things. But Ronnie, what we are facing as people of color,
the books ain't got the answer.
No, they don't. And what when I'm dealing with my female clients that are presenting with some of the struggles that they're dealing with, particularly my ethnic minority, my Asian clients, my Native American clients, man, listen, those answers are not in the textbooks. But you know what? And this is what I say in the joining phase. I said, I have an unorthodox integrative approach to family systems work, right? I will pull from my formal education, training, and experience as a research scholar, as an educator, and as a clinician. But I also pull from the PhD that I have from the School of Hard Knocks in Life that can equally benefit, if not more so at times, benefit my clients in what they're going through, because it's that formula. Ronnie, it's the cohesion. It's this, at times, what felt like a catastrophic collision of all of these experiences from all of these different places that I glean the experience from, that equips me to be instrumental in helping my clients to achieve the goals that they came into treatment to achieve. And I just wanted to add that, because as you can tell, I'm passionate about that. I'm a pit bull when it comes to my clients too. I get mad. When I find out that somebody has mistreated. My client comes in upset, and I immediately pick up, what's going on today? What's wrong? You're not you all right? Well, such and such, and I'll get pissed off. I get immediately heated because, like, wait a minute, I'm territorial. I care about my clients. I'm not.
I always tell my clients, like, look, we not family, but in this space, we family, because God said we all brothers and sisters.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean, in a plug for our field, look, hey, people, if people call you nosy on a quite often basis, I have a job for you. I have a job for you. This is one of the few jobs where you get notoriety for being positively nosy in somebody's life. Not paparazzi. Yeah. We're not paparazzi, but we are all
explore. I gotta get all up into you.
Yeah.
All up into your closet and your secret compartments underneath your bed. I need to get up into all of that to understand what's going on with you.
Exactly. But I always tell people I couldn't see myself doing anything else other than trying to figure out why people do what they do for a living.
That's right. I love the study of human behavior. Why did you say that? Why did you do that? What? Why? I
You know what I
love
like? You know what I like to do with my client? I always tell my clients, I'm like, look, in football, when we messed up, a coach will sit there and have the little thing on the film and point at you and be like, now, son, walk me through what you was thinking on this play.
Yes.
When you tell me about what you did in the previous week between sessions, I'm gonna ask you, so now walk me through what you was thinking when you decided to do that.
Yes. And when exactly did you conclude that was a good idea? And you know what they say? Dr. Pitts, I know. And I tell you know what? There's no judgment or criticism here. What did you learn from it?
Exactly.
What did you learn?
I just finished telling the client on Thursday. I was like, I don't believe in wins and losses. I believe in wins and lessons.
There it is.
It's only a loss when you do not learn the lesson.
That's right. I love it.
So, speaking of wins and losses, before we get into our topic, I definitely want to celebrate some wins here for these gentlemen. So the class of 2022 for the Black College Football Hall of Fame was announced. And so I'm gonna shout out these gentlemen for their work on the field and off the field as HBCU athletes. So the first one is Ben Coates, was a former New England Patriot. He attended Livingston College. Donald Driver, former receiver for the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. He was a graduate of Alcorn State University. John Big Train Moody. It looked like Big Train played a long time ago because he got a leather helmet on his head. So I don't know when he.
Yeah,
but
no
if he had the name Big Train back then, I ain't want to mess with him back then. Anyway, Big Train attended Morris Brown College. Here's a good one for you. Nate Newton, former Dallas Cowboy offensive lineman, graduate of Florida A&M University.
Look, I have his jersey.
Really?
I do. I sure enough do.
Nate was. I always tell people I love watching offensive line highlights in the NFL.
Yeah.
The early '90s Cowboys offensive line, folks. For all my linemen out there, if you want to go see a dominating offense, now once again, I don't like the Cowboys. However,
what's up with you backhanded compliments? You were off to a really great start, and then you go and ruin it.
However, I will say that offensive line in 91, 92, and 90. Oh my God. What? Him? Larry Allen? Mm-hmm. Folks, if you don't know who Larry Allen is, you need to go Google him today. Larry Allen was a dog. Oh my God. Larry Allen, every bit of 6'5", 350, and ran like a running back. If you just go look him up. Nate Newton and Larry Allen, go look up that whole early 90s Cowboys offensive line because they were just disrespectful. They were getting folks out the club. Wear a white t-shirt in their club if you want to. You was getting out there. I'm telling you.
You're just dragging folks.
We got Sammy White, former receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, graduate of Grambling State University. Contributor Roscoe Nance. It just says contributor, but he's going into the Black College Football Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, Coach William Billy Nix, former football coach of Morris Brown and Prairie View A&M. So shout out to these fine gentlemen for being inducted into the Black College Football Hall of Fame this year. Shout out to them. All right. So now, Dr.
Let's talk about the heartbreaking.
Now, you know I love a good story time. You know
you about to ask me a personal question?
No, I'm about to tell you a personal story to set the scene here.
Okay, go ahead.
This is classic. Never forget it. For all my fellas out there, y'all gonna feel me on this, right? So picture this, right? 2012, 10 years ago, actually, 10 years ago.
Am I gonna need to assess you before this is over?
No, I've already done enough self-reflection on this and everything, so we good on this. Now I can talk about this in a safe manner now, in a comfortable manner, without being.
You're not gonna be triggered.
I will not be. I will not be triggered.
In the middle of the show, fooling with you.
I promise I will not burst out into tears mid-sentence. But so freshman year of college, 10 years ago. So I was dating my high school sweetheart at the time. We had both started dating in high school. We both went to Virginia State together. So fast forward to spring ball of my freshman year. Now to set the scene for those, a little bit. So my freshman year, I broke my foot. It was the first major injury of my football career. So I missed the fall season. So I had a medical red shirt going into my fall season. Didn't play at all. Come into the spring, I'm automatically the starter at center because the previous center had just graduated. Okay. Now, mind you, I've said on previous shows, I had no business playing center my freshman year because I had never played center. So going through the growing pains of trying to become a starting center. Meanwhile, in my personal life, because of some unhealthy attachments that I had as a young teenage boy and stuff like that, and not having the proper self-care, self-confidence, and self-esteem that I should have had, I had some maladaptive coping skills in far as relationships go. So with my high school sweetheart, and in reflection and stuff like that, at the end of the day, I was the downfall of the relationship. I can honestly say that. I doubt she's listening to this, but if for whatever reason she was listening to this, just know I admit 10 years later that my actions were the downfall.
Well, you admitting that? You finally owning that? 10 years after the fact.
More specifically, my insecurities were the downfall of our relationship. Now, at the time, I didn't view them. Instinctually, I felt like they were insecurities, but you don't want to talk about that at 18, 19 years old. You just trying to be with somebody. So to make a long story short, I kid you not, it's a Friday evening, just finished practice, chilling with my roommate. I get a text message. She wants a break. Now, for all my fellas out there listening, when you get that text message, I think we should take a break. You know what that means.
That's your Dear John letter. You got a Dear Ronnie letter. You got a Dear Ronnie text.
Man, look, I kid you not. I was in the dorm, just finished eating Ettrick Deli, just had the chicken bacon ranch sub, chilling. So she sent I need space and we need break text. Now internally, whole world is falling apart now because we were having issues and stuff like that, but I never thought at one point or another that we would get to that point. So now, mind you, on the inside, I am freaking out, panicking, over here, in full blown, just like salvation mode, like, baby, no, like, come on, we can talk about this, answer the phone. I'm over here like the Temptations, ain't too proud to beg right now. Like, I'm damn near begging, like, please don't do this.
Baby, please.
Now, mind you, this is on a Friday evening. The very next morning, we had practice. And it was our last scrimmage before our spring game. And so I kid you not. Now on the inside, I feel like absolute trash. My high school sweetheart doesn't want to be with me no more. Don't want to talk. Literally all of it, like, don't want nothing to do with me anymore. Just hurting. For somebody who had an insecure attachment at that age, for somebody that you were securely attached to, especially going through vulnerable moments, that was extremely difficult. So now, mind you, I've always told people, when I walk on a football field, I don't care what the hell I got going on in my personal life. I walk on that football field, it's all business. I tell you today that in 10 years of reflecting on that situation, if it was not for football, I promise you, I probably wouldn't be in this position today because I would have allowed that heartbreak and that turmoil to ruin me. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for having practice at 9:00 the next morning, and I kid you not, so during this spring ball my freshman year, I was the only center on the roster. So I had to do first team and second team reps. Mm-hmm. It was the only practice, and to this day, it was the only practice in my entire 14-year football career that I did not want to leave the practice field.
Wow.
I kid you not. I didn't miss not one rep that whole. I think we probably had like almost 80 plays in the scrimmage. I didn't miss not one rep. I was so hyper focused on practice in that moment because I knew once I walked off that football. Now let me tell you how much of a sap I was, Dr. Pitts. This get bad. So when we had, it was like a 3.5 hour practice that day. I didn't want to leave. Hell, I'm over here doing extra sprints. I'm over here taking extra snap. I'm finding every excuse in the book not to walk off this practice field because I know the moment I walk off and walk out that locker room, what had just happened the night before is going to hit me. And literally, when we got out of practice, I went into my dorm room and I didn't have the light on the whole weekend. I just laid in the dark the whole weekend. And it was a valuable lesson that I learned in that because once again, this is my high school sweetheart. It was the first time I had really had my heart broken. It was my first, my first love, that puppy love. Mm-hmm. It was the first time getting my heart broken. And it was real. Like I really was hurt. Mm-hmm. But football was there to kind of like, hey, we got you, we'll pick you up. And believe it or not, I had a phenomenal spring ball the rest of that spring. I balled out. Like, I mean, what? Balled out. And so I was appreciative of football being there. But however, how I dealt with the heartbreak and things like that, completely maladaptive. I mean, I handled it in every wrong situation you can think of. But I wanted to tell that story because I've been there before where as a young person who, when you think, when you're 18, 19 years old and you get in a relationship, you automatically think, oh, I'm in love. Oh, this is what life is supposed to be like. This is what it's like playing house. All that cute stuff that you think is what a relationship consists of, right? But what I wasn't ready for is like how to deal with that when it ends. And like I said, if it wasn't for football and my love for football, I don't think I would have handled that situation properly. I had teammates themselves who also went through heartbreaks while we were in school. They did not handle it the same way properly. They missed practice, they missed lifts, they were late, they weren't going to class.
Just drinking, drugging.
Exactly. I mean, trying to, drink away the pain. I had a teammate who literally tried to drink away his pain when his girl had broke up with him. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't want to go too far into a tangent, but when we talk about heartbreak in sports, that's just from the relationship side of it. Yeah. I shared 2 weeks ago my heartbreak of my junior season when one of my teammates went into the bathroom and got to fighting with the starting quarterback of the other team. Yeah. And now our chance at a championship was just taken away from us literally within 2 punches. Right. So, heartbreak can happen in relationships, in sports, in life, in everything. But I wanted to start off this topic by saying, it happens. And for me, and I want to ask you how you feel about this, Dr. Chris, because this might be a insensitive viewpoint on it, but I like to think that you need your heart broken at least one good time. At least one good, and I will explain why. Mm-hmm. With all good things. Think about it in a sports reference. Let's look at the Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. Patriots, when they went undefeated, they went 18-0. Mm-hmm. Hadn't lost a game. They were riding high. Felt good because all they knew was winning. Mm-hmm. And then they had heartbreak. They ran into the Giants. Mm-hmm. So even though they were, if somebody said you went 18-1, oh damn, that's a good season. Yeah, but we lost the last game of the season. So the
one that matters the most.
The first 18 games was for nothing because we just lost the most important one, right? Mm-hmm. So I say all to say, you don't enjoy. I mean, for me personally, now you might have a different opinion, but I think if you really don't have your heart broken at least one good time, you don't really start to appreciate, understand what it means to work in relationships and how, even though, relationships can make you feel the highest of highs, but it's the lowest of lows that you have to ask yourself, am I willing to work through this with this person that I'm saying that I love?
So I do agree with you. And let me flesh that out a little bit more clinically for our audience, because I think that people need to understand that we're not crazy talking out the side of our neck. The reason why it's not a bad thing to have your heart broken is the same reason why it's not a bad thing to go through some trials and tribulations and some hiccups and bumps in the road in every other area of your life. Life is full of ebbs and flows. And how will you ever really know what you're capable of and what you're made of if you never go through anything? That's why so oftentimes when people have this sort of plateau life where everything is peaches and cream and a bed of roses, and they never, experience any loss. They never experience things not going the way they want. What ends up happening is that when something does happen to them that is adverse, it can take them to such a low place that some people don't bounce back from it. People have been known to have nervous breakdowns in response to breakups or in response to death. So I think that it's important for people to understand that experiencing heartbreak is really a way for you to do what you said. And I love that you mentioned it because it's something that I wanted to make sure we touch on today, is people need to understand whether or not they're securely or insecurely attached, right? And you need to be able to be your authentic self and understand what's going on with you internally. And heartbreak is definitely an eye-opener, hence why I do the relationship litmus with my clients, right? What are the patterns that are showing up in your relationships? Are you experiencing one heartbreak after the other, after the other, after the other? And what that speaks to is you're insecurely attached. You're not giving yourself a chance to heal. I also wanted to plug in, and there's no appropriate way to say this, so I'm just going to say it the way that people say it, is oftentimes people say the way to get over one is to get under another. That's
Mm.
dangerous, and it is so unhealthy. It's not even funny. And
We're
let's
definitely
face
gonna talk about that.
yeah, that we know that that's something that we see far too frequently in the athletic world. And people, we've done a show on attachment, and people need to understand how being insecurely attached is fueling their engagement in these maladaptive behaviors that are only serving to further exacerbate the relational problems that they're having, first and foremost in one's relationship with themselves, as well as the relationship with the sport or with the intimate partner or with whomever they've experienced a breakup with. But I totally agree with you that it demonstrates an opportunity for growth and heightened self-awareness when you've experienced heartbreak.
Yeah, and keeping on the relationship topic, because I know we definitely got to get into heartbreaking sports, which I would argue is equally as painful as a heartbreaking relationships, depending on the magnitude of the sport and the context. But to your point about and we I have this conversation with a lot of young men a lot, especially late teenage, early adulthood years, because from a guy's perspective, when we think about relationships and heartbreak and stuff like that, for guys, we don't like to talk about heartbreaks maybe in the same way that females do. And what I mean by that is, when we get our heart broken, we take that like a attack on our pride, because what do we know about men? Oftentimes, most men, not all, but most men, unfortunately, are not really taught how to handle their emotions, especially the vulnerable ones of love, vulnerability, compassion, all those vulnerable, mushy, gushy feelings that as men, we just kind of put off to the side. And, we're like, well, we'll deal with that if and when that does come up. But it's not necessarily if it comes up, it's when it comes up. And
That's right.
of course, I mean, as men, we get our heart broken, especially by a female that we trust and love. You get your heart broken or you get misled or you get hurt by them. We are quickly to all the stigma already is that men don't have feelings when it comes to relationships, stuff like that. We just look at it for the physical part of it, or just to say we have somebody. But coming from somebody who definitely, had that maladaptive coping skill of, oh, well, I got my heart broken, well, I'm just gonna go out here and be a savage. Like, feelings are off the table.
As you can.
I will say this: I respectfully broke hearts. Respectfully broke hearts. All right. Now I know you're looking like, boy, what are you?
I just give you the slow eye roll. Go ahead.
But
That's
no,
not an oxymoron statement. What the heck? What?
Look, I know you're probably thinking like, what is this boy talking about? But let me explain. Like, for me, I had to learn, and I actually just had this conversation with a young man too. It's like, for me, when I had my heart broken, of course, I want to go out here, and the first thing I want to do is I just want to get the next one, because I want to get the last one out of my mind. I want a new connection. And for me, to get that connection was through physical acts, sex, things like that. And so that's how I viewed how to deal with a heartbreak was, well, I would just sleep my way through dealing with it, and for me, and so for my fellas out there, I want to highlight this lesson real quick when it comes to relationships and really getting through them. I definitely have some tips that I want to go through, but it kind of ties into sports and relationships. But one of my biggest tips that I want to share with men out there today, and because I think we really need to start having this conversation more, is number one, you need to have some standards on your private part. All right. That's first and foremost. You need to have standards about who you sleep with and what you put your thing into, because it's easy for us. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's more accepted for guys to go out here and say, well, I'll just sleep with all the women I can because A, that seems cool. B, that means I'm a man because I can sleep with multiple women. And C, if I can just ignore my feelings, I don't have to worry about getting hurt. But unfortunately, what that does is it builds a maladaptive way, not only of how you deal with conflict in relationships, but how you deal with relationships in general. So I want all my men to understand this. Just because you have the opportunity to have sex with somebody doesn't mean you should. All right.
Go ahead. I want to don't go off of that until you give me a chance to add to it. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I, that whole, the best way to get over one is to get under another, and that goes for both men and women. Let's keep that straight. Just like the whole being protective of your anatomy, that applies to women too. You can have sex with as many people as you want to have sex with, but at the end of the day, don't delude yourself into thinking that you're not going to be thinking about the other person while you're doing what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't replace the emotional attachment that you have. And at the end of the day, you can experience gratification physically, but you're still not gratified emotionally. So when you get up, you're still getting up with the same pain you laid down with.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that the highlight of my point is, you know, as men, oftentimes we think that the way to get over emotional pain is through physical, you know, redemption, like I said, through sex and other acts like that. But I like to challenge, you know, the young men to do the work, to do the self-reflection and do the real work that is necessary to understand why on an emotional level you feel like you need to cope with it this way, as opposed to addressing the emotions head on. Because what happens is, I just had a conversation with a young dude, and he said, I don't want to be disrespectful towards women, but oftentimes the only way I can really, you know, get women to really hook up with me is if I, you know, make them think that I want to be with them. And he's not the first person. I've been guilty of that as well. A lot of men are guilty of that, where, you know,
don't.
Oh, I mean, well, yeah, I mean,
you don't have to get, look, this me and you don't have to give women a pass. Women are just,
I don't.
We are treacherous.
Let's get one thing clear. Y'all are savages. I always tell people, when a woman decides, see, here's the thing about what, I don't want to get too far, but when a woman decides to make a decision without emotions involved in it, run, boy, run, boy. You have unwoken up. We can be savages. Y'all are, what they say, there's nothing on this earth more dangerous. What is
hell has no fury like an angry woman scorned.
Boy,
and I've yet to meet a man.
I don't know where in the Bible that is, but it needs to be in there somewhere.
It is. I believe it's in Proverbs. And I'm saying this humbly. When you, to your point about the mission, if you will, that men go on, and in comparison to the mission that women go on when they've been hurt, the danger of that is that it ends up wreaking havoc and causing a lot more heartbreak for a lot more people. I refer to it as leaving a wake of disaster, where all of these other people paid for the fact that somebody broke your heart. And it's a very vicious place to be, because personally and professionally, Ronnie, I have yet to encounter a man that can handle what he dishes out, because women, see, it's a different and much more charged emotional response to things. See, and watch, I'm gonna prove my point to our entire audience.
You already sold me.
You can say to a woman, look, you can say to a woman, you know, how does it make you feel to think about the fact that your man is being intimate with somebody else? And we can, you know, we be like, you know, it's hurtful, this, that, and the other. But let one of us say to a man, Ronnie, what goes through your mind if you see? We can't even get it out. We can't even get it out. We cannot even get it out, because you all have such a different connection when it comes to physical intimacy, that the mere thought of the woman that you love, whether you're dating her, broke up from her, or married to her, being physically intimate with somebody else makes y'all crazy.
Oh, wars have been waged.
You know what y'all say? Don't even joke like that. Don't play. Go ahead. Why are you playing?
Oh yeah, no.
Y'all can't even have a conversation.
I,
And never
I
had a
can't.
conversation.
You're 1,000% right. I promise you. Like,
That's what makes y'all so
mm,
vulnerable to enemy
mm-mm,
attack.
mm-mm. No,
Did you hear what I said? Did
yeah. Oh
you?
no, you're.
That's what makes men so vulnerable to enemy attack. So I say it that way because and I've also said it, and I've pissed some people off over the years. You out here doing you won't get back time. You won't
Mm-hmm,
get back time. And you, like you said, you're gonna mess around and awaken a beast, and you bit
mm-hmm,
off more than you can chew. Because let's put it in spiritual context. The Bible doesn't say anything about what happens if y'all get mad. The
mm-hmm.
Bible says hell has no fury like an
Like a scorn.
angry woman scorned. If a
And
woman gets it in her mind
oh,
that she's
what?
gonna be on get back time, there is nothing that y'all not ready.
If
Y'all not ready.
if y'all choose demon time, you ain't got. You don't have to convince me, El. I am a first-hand witness
Mhm.
of these things happen. I always tell people, if when a woman makes a decision and she excludes emotions out of it, oh, you in for a
Ronnie, you remember
long.
in have you ever seen Tyler Perry's movie The Family That Prays?
Yeah, I've seen it once or
There's a
twice.
power, I mean, the whole movie was good, but there
Mm-hmm.
was a powerful scene in that movie where dude's mom, paid by Kathy Bates or whatever her name is, she says the wife comes to her, she's out in the rose garden, the wife comes to her crying, and she said, "What are you crying for? You're a woman scorned without a prenup. You hold all the power, act like it." I
Mm-hmm.
said, boom.
Yeah, I always, and so with that being said, one of the things that I've had to learn, and this is for my young adults and stuff like that. If there's a tip I could give you, or at least some type of guidance, if I could go back to my 19-year-old self and give one piece of advice when it concerns relationships or just intermingling with the other sex in regards to sex. Like I said earlier, when it comes to mental health and Black people wanting, being trusting and stuff like that. Same thing if you choose to, have, friends with benefits and stuff like that. Understand this. Being honest will always, in the long run, make things not as awkward or painful as it could be. And I'll give you an example. When you say, I ain't looking for no relationship, I'm just trying to, just have a good time.
That never
In th-
works.
Absolutely. In theory, it sounds good, but
It don't
I
work.
don't want to go too deep into this, but I always tell people, like, sex is a a wonderful thing that we do as humans. I mean, well, all species do it, but I think people fail to realize the spiritual connection and the emotional connection that comes along with sex, the exchanging of energies, the exchanging of emotions with somebody else in a very vulnerable state. And I think people often get to realize, like, when you are laying down with somebody and exchanging energy with somebody, that's not just something you just dismiss or bat an eye at. Like,
Soul ties are
it,
formed.
exactly. And I think, so to my fellas out there, like I said, have a standard for your private part. I don't know on the radio what we are allowed to say as far as private parts
Private
go,
part
so
will do.
I'll leave it at private parts. But have a standard for your private part, and do not think with that, fellas. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They say we got two heads. Don't think with the other one. I'm being serious. Do not think with the other one, because when you do not have a grasp of your emotional responses, especially in regards to intimacy, lust, and stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, you set yourself up for being emotionally hurt and your vulnerability being exposed, especially if you don't have a good understanding of your vulnerability, because somebody can come in with all the purest intentions in the world, but when you involve sex and you involve intimacy and lust and stuff like that, somebody's going to catch feelings, and somebody either confirms that or denies it, and somebody's going to be hurt. And then one person starts that cycle, like Dr. Pitts pointed out, that cycle starts all over and over again until you come across somebody else who has good intentions, and they come across you because you've been scorned, and now you need to go scorn somebody else to settle the score.
Ronnie, let me put that in clinical language, the two great tips that you gave. When we talk about mending a broken heart, whether it's your breakup from the sport or your breakup with a person or whatever the relationship context is, you can't let your emotions rule. Your emotions are not good advisors in those types of situations.
No,
They
not
will
at
get
all.
you in more
Not at
trouble
all.
and end up causing you more pain. When you think about what I said last week about being able to make the connection between your emotions and your value system, and how when you dishonor your values, you end up experiencing negative emotions that can lead to extreme emotional pain. You cannot allow yourself, you have to choose, because it is a choice. You have to choose to not let your emotions rule. The second tip that you gave, and I want to put it in clinical speak, if you will, is you have to take care of yourself. And taking care of yourself is, being more selective and responsible where intimacy is concerned, being more responsible when it comes to learning how to appropriately regulate your emotions and not allowing your thoughts to dictate your emotions and your behavior. We're not suggesting turn the emotional switch off, because that's dangerous too. That's called suppression. That is called suppression. And what will happen, I tell people there's a reason why there's a show called Snapped. What will happen is you suppress all of those raw emotions, and then something happens. Ronnie, stop laughing at me. And then what happens is, you see what happened was, all that emotion comes boiling up like a volcanic eruption, and chances are somebody ends up getting physically hurt, or you go on such an emotional tirade that you end up saying things that you can't unsay. And I've often said that you can get into a domestic violence situation, and obviously depending on the severity of the situation, the bruises will heal, right? But that broken record that plays in your head when somebody had said something to you that cut you to the core of your soul, or what I used to refer to, when total transparency, when I would go on my tirades, I would go for the kill shot. I'm going emotionally for the jugular. And why do people do that? Because hurting people hurt people. And you end up saying things because you want to inflict as much emotional pain on the other person as they have inflicted upon you, but you can't do that. And that's why it's so important to acknowledge the authenticity of what you're really feeling, where appropriate, convey that in a way that doesn't present as psychotic, and put the effort forward to not stay stuck in the past and in that place of pain. You have to be willing to move forward. Go ahead.
A great example of everything you just talked about. It's another Tyler Perry movie. Have you seen the movie Acrimony?
That is one of my favorites of all times. That movie had me talking to the movie screen. And I went, that was a girls trip movie. And my girls were like, oh my God, can you please shut up before they put us at this theater? Like, for real. I was talking out loud. Look, I had my clinical hat on. I was assessing her insanity. Like, I was talking to the screen the whole time.
But it's crazy. From an emotional standpoint, I felt her from an emotional standpoint. But from the reality of it, I don't want to spoil the movie for people who haven't seen it. If you haven't had a chance to go see everything me and Dr. Pitts are talking about, go watch that movie. That is a great example of heartbreak, of not moving on, of not self-reflection. Even from the very beginning,
an inability to appreciate the good memories, because even when she reflected upon them, it fueled her insanity.
Yep. And the way she justified the good moments as like, well, we did have good moments, so when the bad moments came, I knew, well, something will come out of it. I don't want to spoil the movie, but if you get a chance to go watch that movie, fellas, I will say this though, as a guy, it was hard to watch that movie because, like, from the guy's perspective, granted, like, his intentions were definitely, he was finessing, but I mean, I feel like he broke her off once he made it. Like, I mean, not depends. I mean, if you were in that situation,
I advocated for him. People were mad at me because when it was, I don't get me wrong, I was compassionate for her because of the beginning, because in the beginning it was ugly, but it was also very, very, because I watched that movie and I watch it a lot because I love that movie. And I assessed that movie and I watched that movie with my clinical hat on.
Mm-hmm.
And what was evident, real, she was mentally ill from the door.
Oh yeah,
she was thrown off from the door. So
yeah.
she had a history of untreated mental illness. That and here's the thing, folk out here insecurely attached. I'm gonna give shout out to my aunt Pamela Gale Pitts, and Pam always said one of the most dangerous things that you can do is play with somebody's emotions. Folk will kill you.
Oh yeah,
for messing them over. And hence, there's a show called Snapped.
And in that instance, the money.
Play with people's emotions.
And her situation, the money too.
Yeah.
Because she was emotionally tied to the money because of who it was from.
Exactly. So you have to. And this is one of the other tips of how to mend a broken heart. You have to be healthy enough, mature enough, responsible enough, and securely attached enough, Ronnie, to be in a place and space where you don't deny your needs. And I don't want to give the movie away. If anybody has not seen Acrimony, you need to go see that movie. That's all we're going to say about Acrimony. But in the context of sports or intimate relation, any type of relationship dynamic, you absolutely you have to be stable enough, Ronnie, to not be able to deny your needs, which means you have to be able to reevaluate what your needs are and be able to articulate them and have boundaries in place to honor them, because otherwise you're setting yourself up to be in that vicious cycle of relationship hopping. And when you relationship hop, every time you do that without resolving the issues that led to the breakups in the first place, you're putting more stuff in the semi truck of issues that you have. It's like your issues started out with the little red wagon, right? And then your issues escalated to a wheelbarrow. And then it escalated to a pickup truck. And then it escalated to a long bed pickup truck. And then it escalated to a full-blown flatbed. And then you was in a 15-foot moving truck. And now you all the way up to a tractor trailer, a couple of tractor trailers for some people. Let me just go ahead and say, some people got a whole fleet.
Got a whole convoy.
Some people have a whole fleet of baggage that they're carrying from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next. And then you know what happens, Ronnie? By the time they get to me, by the time they get to you, by the time they get to our colleagues, they are so emotionally unstable. And their sense of self is so eroded that they don't know whether they're coming and going, because they validated themselves by the existence of the sport. They validated themselves by the existence of the relationship in their life. And it just leaves them in this persistent state of rebounding from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's an unhealthy, vicious cycle that leaves people in a persistent state of woundedness.
I agree with everything you said, and that's what made me think of the movie Acrimony, because everything you had just laid out, it, like we said, if you haven't checked that movie out, it's one of Taraji's, I think, one of her best performances.
Oh, she shined.
I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes when actors play certain roles, they're not playing acting. They playing from experience. And hey, look, whoever out there hurt Taraji in her younger years, hey, look, I hope you know that she took that out on that.
She became that part.
Yeah.
She owned it. I don't know why she didn't get an Oscar for it, because she owned that role.
I ain't gonna look.
owned it.
She played that role so well. I look at her differently to this day. Like I have to question whether I even like her anymore after that movie, because I'm just like, man.
You know what's interesting, real quick on that before we can keep moving, is she was crazy as Cookie on Empire, but it doesn't compare to how mentally unstable she is in Acrimony. There is literally no comparison.
You want to know why? Because Cookie was emotional in her decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what her name was in Acrimony, but it went from emotional and she switched to straight to methodical. And when she went methodical, it was game. Go watch the movie.
Lights
people.
out.
Go watch the movie.
It was lights out.
We're getting ready to come to the end of our time, ladies and gentlemen. And I know we didn't necessarily get to really talk about, heartbreak in sports in all depth and detail, but I think it was good that we actually fleshed out the relationship side of it too, because let's be real, when we think of heartbreak, I always tell people there are certain emotions that you don't necessarily need to go through the same situation to understand what that feeling feels like.
Mm-hmm.
For example, as clinicians, me and Dr. Pitts have not gone through a lot of the experiences our clients have gone through. However, we have experienced the emotions that are tagged along with those experiences. Mm-hmm. And that's oftentimes how we can connect and relate and really build a relationship and rapport with our clients. Mm-hmm. Same thing in sports. Heartbreak is heartbreak, whether it's through a relationship, whether it's through watching your Little League career end on the last play of a sweep, whether it's watching your teammate go in the bathroom and knock somebody out and lose a championship game, whether it's Tony Romo fumbling a snap on an extra point, which he's done 1,000 times, and then Seattle moves on to the next round of the playoffs.
You know what? I almost responded impulsively just then, and
Lolo almost came out.
Lorraine almost came to the forefront. I swear to you, I was getting ready to respond impulsively, and my rational brain kicked in and remembered that I was
still alive.
Ronnie, stop triggering me.
I'm sorry, but
see how dangerous he is. So y'all know he was a force to be reckoned with when he was young and before he got married, because he just always doing stuff.
Hey, I just like to, have fun with people. I like to keep people alive, keep them on their toes. What's life without a little bit of excitement, But I say all to say, and so I want to run through some tips that whether you are, just in relationships, whether you're a player, coach, family member, any type of heartbreak that we deal with, there are certain things that we have to do in order to, address it, reflect it, process it, and cope with it. Mm-hmm. So I just want to run through these.
And once you do that, I'm going to highlight the tips for our audience on what it looks like to have a healthy, functional relationship in the context of people and sports. And then we'll finish on that note. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna fly through these pretty quickly because I want to make sure you have enough time. So first and foremost,
minutes. You're good.
So I'll take 3. You get 3. Bet.
Boom.
So first and foremost is acceptance. Without anything, the real work cannot begin in anything without first accepting what is going on, the issue, the trigger, the problem, the setback, the heartbreak, whatever it is. You cannot begin to do the work until you accept that it has happened. All right, that's first and foremost. Next one, cry and vent. Whether this is a relationship, sporting event, whatever the case may be. Once you have accepted what has happened, if those feelings are extremely volatile, extremely imbalanced, just all over the place, one of the best things you can do is to cry and vent. If crying is all you need, cry it out. You'd be surprised what a good cry can do for you. Or if you are a venter, if you need to talk to somebody, write it out, whatever your style of venting is, do that. Next one, from a relationship standpoint, cut the connection. What I mean by that is stop following them on Instagram and Facebook. Stop going to search their name and check on, see what they're doing. Stop having people go on their page and check what they're doing for you. Stop having people that know them casually hit them up. Oh, hey, what's going on? How you been? Long time no see. Yeah, that's crazy what happened between you and them. I wish y'all had worked out, but how things been going on with you? Don't have somebody going here being your private investigator and stuff like that. Cut the connection. If it is a negative influence in your life, cut it out. If it was cancer, you would tell the doctor, cut it out. If that relationship or the person that you were in that relationship with is cancer, cut it out. Next one, go out. So part of the journey of self-reflection and rebounding from heartbreak and stuff like that is putting a plan into action. One of those plans is going out. You just can't stay to yourself, suppress yourself, and internalize everything that happened to you. Being around other people, being around positive influences and positive energies is a great way to move on. Oh, damn, I'm running out of my time. So next one is self-indulgence. Indulge, spoil yourself, splurge on yourself. Next one is write what you feel. Journaling, writing down how you feel is a great way to get those emotions out. I always tell people a great thing to do if you want to get emotions out and not have to worry about them again, write a letter and then burn the letter or throw it away, whatever the case may be. Write it down, burn it, save it, whatever. The seventh one, and this is probably the most important one, and I'm gonna take 30 seconds of your time, Dr. Fitz.
You're fine, good.
Forgiveness. I think oftentimes people mistake what forgiveness really means. When we often hear, I forgive you, but I won't forget. All right, let me say this real quick. Forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for you, okay? When you forgive somebody for what they did to you, that is you relinquishing the power that they had over your emotions from them. Nobody's telling you forget what happened. Of course, you can remember what happened. That's fine. But until you forgive that person for what they did, they will always have emotional hostage over how you feel in that moment, and that will always be a trigger for you. So forgive, not for them, but for you. My last couple of tips is uplift someone's mood instead. So, what we always say, giving is always better than receiving. So give the energy you want in return. Ninth one, don't play the breakup to makeup charade. So like we were talking about earlier, don't get in this cycle of just using people for what you need. And in your mind, you are already sabotaging the relationship thinking that they're going to do something to you. So let me go ahead and do something to them before they do something to me. And then y'all get in this toxic relationship of going back and forth. Don't do that. Last but not least, start believing. Start believing that there is an other side to this heartbreak. Start believing that there is somebody out there that is genuinely for you and actually will be compassionate, understanding, and loving of what you need. So my last tip is start believing. Sorry, Dr. Pitts, I took away a minute.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And I'm gonna go through it real quick. So again, some tips that you can keep in mind or characteristics of a healthy, functional relationship within the context of your relationship with sports or with an actual person or a situation or circumstance. Honesty and accountability. Accepting responsibility for yourself in the situation. You get fired from the sport. Well, why did they let you go, Antonio Brown? Why did you find yourself in that situation? You have to take responsibility for your contribution to the situation. And that goes for somebody that messed over you too. How did you end up in a relationship with somebody that dogged you? The last three dogged you too. Open communication, being able to express your feelings or your opinions in a positive, productive, and mature, responsible way. Negotiation and fairness, attempting to seek mutually satisfying resolutions to whatever the presenting conflict is. Being willing to find solutions that are agreeable for all parties involved. Economics, you want to be able to look at making decisions where the money is concerned. Some people renegotiate contracts, right? Some people, we look at the what we were talking about last week as far as, money that's being offered from this school or that school or the other. So you want to look at the economic part of it and see what's the benefit or non-beneficial part of it. Shared responsibilities. Being able to sit down and have a mature, responsible conversation with the coach, with the trainer, with the person, whatever the case may be, and making decisions together and coming to a harmonious conclusion that both can live with. Respect. You got to stay respectful. You love this person one minute, you love this game the next minute, and then you get let go and you start trash talking about the team, or you start trash talking about the person that before you got let go was your friend. Not cool. Or the person that you broke up with. Trust and support. there has to be trust or there's nothing, right? You have to be supportive. One of the things that I appreciate that Tom Brady said is that, we need to rally around him. We need to offer him some support. Non-threatening behavior. That's I don't need to explain that. And then, personal integrity, having integrity within the context of your relationship with the game, your relationship with the person, or whatever the case may be, is absolutely paramount. That's all we have. That's all we have for today, folks. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Don't get, drink responsibly tomorrow. Eat some wings for me. I'm not rooting for either one of the teams because y'all know why. I don't even need to say. Go ahead, Smarty Pants. I may go say something slick.
No, I'm not. This is a self-fulfilling moment. So for all our wonderful listeners out there, for all your support and encouragement over the last year and a half, not only is it Super Bowl Sunday, but it is my Earth Day tomorrow as well. So I will have went around the sun 29 times tomorrow. So, and since we always talk about, charities and foundations and things like that, if y'all want to donate to a foundation, Cash App, $ Hafrican, HALFRICAN 79 is accepting all donations. So if you're out there listening and you want to help a young person out struggling in this world, trying to make a way, $ Hafrican 79.
Happy birthday, fool. So simple. We love you. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Yes, have a great weekend.
Thank you.